Could you lead an army of elephants over snowy mountains? Would you dare to copy your enemy's best moves to beat them? Who really changed history? The general who never gave up, or the one who won it all? These are the questions we're answering today about two legends, Hannibal and Scipio. They never fought face to face, but their rivalry shaped the world. Get this. Hannibal used vinegar to smash rocks blocking his path in the Alps. Vinegar! And Scipio? He studied Hannibal's battles like a book, then used those tricks to outsmart him. Here's another shocker. Both stayed undefeated in big battles for years. Years. Yet only one claimed victory in the end. Hannibal said, "I will either find a way or make one." Pure grit. Scipio countered with, "A true leader turns enemies into allies." Wise words. So, who's the real genius? By the time this video ends, you'll pick a side. Hannibal, the elephant master, or Scipio, Rome's clever strategist. Welcome back to Learn English with Stories 365. Let's dive into their story. Part 1. The Highlight Reel. Let's jump right into the action with the highlight reel of Hannibal and Scipio. These two generals didn't just fight battles. They made history with moves so bold they still echo today. First, let's talk about Hannibal. This guy was a legend in his own time. Back in 218 BCE, he did something no one thought possible. He crossed the Alps to invade Italy. Not just with soldiers, but with elephants. Picture a freezing, snowy mountain range, steep cliffs, and narrow paths. Most armies would turn back, but Hannibal kept going. His men were tired, hungry, and cold, yet he pushed them forward with sheer will. That crossing wasn't just a journey, it was a statement. He was telling Rome, "I'm coming for you." And he didn't stop there. 2 years later, in 216 BCE, he pulled off his greatest victory at a place called Cannae. Hannibal faced a Roman army twice the size of his own. Most generals would have played it safe, but not him. He tricked the Romans into charging straight into a trap. His army surrounded them, squeezing tighter and tighter until almost every Roman soldier was gone. It was a massacre, and Hannibal's name became a nightmare for Rome. For 15 years, he roamed Italy, undefeated, striking fear into every city. What's the lesson here? Bold risks can rewrite the rules of war. Hannibal didn't follow the playbook. He tore it up and wrote his own. Now, let's switch to Scipio. If Hannibal was the storm, Scipio was the calm that stopped it. This guy was just as brilliant, but in a different way. Around 209 BCE, while Hannibal was still terrorizing Italy, Scipio took charge in Spain. That was Carthage's backyard, full of their allies and resources. Scipio didn't just fight, he conquered. He captured city after city, cutting off Carthage's supplies. But his real masterpiece came later, in 202 BCE, at the Battle of Zama. This was the showdown everyone waited for. Hannibal versus Scipio. Hannibal brought his elephants, his tricks, and his reputation. Scipio brought something else, Hannibal's own playbook. See, Scipio had studied every move Hannibal made. He knew how Hannibal used surprise, how he set traps. So, at Zama, Scipio was ready. He turned Hannibal's strengths against him. When those elephants charged, Scipio's army opened paths to let them run through harmlessly. When Hannibal tried his famous encircling trick, Scipio countered with his own cavalry, hitting from the sides. By the end, Hannibal's army was broken, and Scipio stood tall. That victory ended the war and saved Rome. Oh, and here's the kicker. Scipio never lost a battle. Not one. His lesson: adapt your enemy's tactics, and you become unstoppable. Let's zoom in on what made these moments so epic. Hannibal's Alpine crossing wasn't just about guts. It was about logistics. That's a fancy word for planning how to move men, food, and, yes, elephants over impossible terrain. He had to keep his army alive in freezing mountains with no roads. One wrong move, and they'd starve or freeze. Yet he pulled it off. At Cannae, he used the terrain, hills, rivers, even the sun's position, to blind and trap the Romans. He set up an ambush so perfect it's still taught in military schools. The guy was resilient, bouncing back from every setback. His legacy: he showed the world what daring looks like. Scipio, though, was a different kind of genius. He didn't just win battles, he won minds. In Spain, he didn't have enough soldiers, so he made friends with local tribes. That's diplomacy, turning strangers into allies. At Zama, he used Hannibal's own tricks, like flanking, hitting from the sides, or feints, fake attacks to confuse the enemy. But Scipio added his own twist: discipline. His soldiers moved like a machine, every man in sync. He didn't just fight smarter, he fought cleaner. Hannibal once said, "Elephants aren't the only surprise." And he was right. His creativity shocked everyone. But Scipio's motto was, "Fight smarter, not harder." He proved you don't need to be the loudest to be the strongest. So, what's the score so far? Hannibal's got the flash, elephants, traps, and 15 years of defying Rome. Scipio's got the results: Spain, Zama, and the final win. Both men were masters of their craft, but their styles couldn't be more different. Hannibal was the rebel, breaking every rule. Scipio was the student, learning the rules and making them better. Up next, We'll dig into their backstories, how a boy's oath and a teen's promise shaped empires. Get ready, because their lives were just as wild as their battles. Let's sprinkle in some words to learn. Logistics. That's planning every detail, like food and weapons for an army. Ambush. A surprise attack from a hidden spot. Terrain. The land you fight on. Hills, rivers, or plains. Resilience. Getting back up when life knocks you down. Legacy. What you leave behind for others to remember. And a couple of phrases to stick with you. Hannibal's "Elephants aren't the only surprise" reminds us to expect the unexpected. Scipio's "Fight smarter, not harder" tells us brains can beat brawn. This highlight reel shows why these guys matter. Hannibal's daring made him a legend, but Scipio's victories made him a savior. Who's got your vote so far? Hold that thought, because their stories are about to get even deeper. Part 2. Hannibal's background. Now we're diving into the story of Hannibal, the man who made Rome tremble. His life wasn't just a series of battles. It was a saga that started when he was just a kid. Hannibal was born in Carthage, a powerful city in North Africa, around 247 BCE. His father, Hamilcar, was a general who fought Rome in the First Punic War. Picture a young boy growing up hearing stories of Rome's strength, its armies, its hunger for power. Carthage had lost that war, and Hamilcar was bitter. He didn't want his son to forget. So, when Hannibal was only 9 years old, his father made him swear an oath. Hannibal placed his hand on a sacred altar and promised to be Rome's enemy forever. 9 years old. Most kids are playing games at that age, but Hannibal was vowing to take down an empire. That oath wasn't just words. It shaped his entire life. It burned in him, driving every choice he made. From that moment, Hannibal wasn't just a boy. He was a warrior with a mission. Hannibal grew up fast. His father took him to Spain, where Carthage was building new strength. There, Hannibal learned the art of war. He trained with soldiers, rode horses, and studied maps. By his teens, he was already leading men. When his father died, Hannibal's brother-in-law took over. But Hannibal was never far from the action. He fought in battles, planned attacks, and earned respect. Then, at age 26, he became the leader of Carthage's army. Young? Sure. But ready. Hannibal wasn't just strong. He was clever. He mastered something called psychological warfare. That means messing with your enemy's head. He'd spread rumors to scare Romans or fake retreats to trick them. His soldiers weren't just from Carthage. They were mercenaries, hired fighters from all over. Gauls, Numidians, Spaniards. He led them all, speaking their languages, sharing their campfires. That's what made him special. He could unite different people under one goal: crush Rome. Let's talk about how Hannibal thought. He loved surprises. One time, he sent his army through a swamp to catch the Romans off guard. A swamp? Who does that? His men waded through mud for days, and Hannibal himself lost an eye to an infection. Did he complain? No. He kept going. That's what retreat meant to him. Never giving up, just finding another way. His victories, like at Cannae, came from these bold moves. He'd study the land, the weather, even the enemy's mood. Then he'd strike where they least expected. Did you know Hannibal spoke Greek and Latin fluently? He wasn't just a fighter. He was a talker. He'd negotiate with enemy tribes in their own words, winning them over or sowing doubt. That's power. He didn't just fight Rome's armies. He fought their confidence. Hannibal's story isn't all glory, though. Carthage was a city built on trade, not conquest. They had wealth, gold, ships, markets. But their leaders didn't always back Hannibal. While he was in Italy, winning battle after battle, Carthage sent him little help. He had to find his own food, weapons, and men. Imagine fighting the world's strongest empire while your own city leaves you hanging. Yet Hannibal stayed in Italy for 15 years, never losing a major battle. That's not just skill, that's heart. His oath kept him going, but it also trapped him. He couldn't stop, even when the odds turned. His hatred for Rome defined him, for better or worse. What made Hannibal tick? Loyalty. His men followed him because he was one of them. He slept on the ground, ate the same rations, and led every charge. That's why they crossed mountains and swamps for him. But he wasn't perfect. His obsession with Rome blinded him sometimes. He won battles, but struggled to win the war. Cities in Italy wouldn't join him long term. They feared Rome too much. Still, his name lived on. Even today, generals study his tricks. How he turned weaknesses into traps. How he made fear his weapon. Let's learn some words from Hannibal's world. Oath. A serious promise you can't break. Carthaginian. Someone from Carthage, like Hannibal. Siege. Surrounding a city to force it to surrender. Mercenary. A soldier paid to fight, not loyal to a flag. Retreat. Pulling back from a fight, but not always giving up. And some phrases, sworn enemy of Rome, captures Hannibal's lifelong mission. Master of surprise sums up his genius for catching enemies off guard. Hannibal's background shows us a man shaped by a promise. That 9-year-old boy became a general who shook an empire. His story teaches us that passion can move mountains or elephants, but it also warns us a single goal can consume you. Hannibal's victories were legendary, but his fight was lonely. Next, we'll meet Scipio, the man who matched him step for step. Get ready for another tale of grit and glory. Part 3. Scipio's background. Now let's turn to Scipio, the man who became Rome's answer to Hannibal. His story is just as gripping, but it's a different kind of tale. One of brains, grit, and a quiet strength that saved an empire. Scipio was born around 236 BCE into a powerful Roman family. His father was a consul, one of Rome's top leaders, so young Scipio grew up surrounded by politics and war. Rome wasn't just a city to him. It was a way of life, and he was raised to defend it. But Scipio's path wasn't handed to him on a silver platter. He earned his place through courage and cleverness, starting with a moment that could have broken anyone else. As a teenager, he fought in the Battle of Cannae in 216 BCE. That was Hannibal's greatest victory, where Rome lost tens of thousands of men in a single day. Scipio was there, watching the disaster unfold. Most people would have given up, but not him. That defeat didn't scare him. It taught him. He walked away from Cannae determined to understand Hannibal and beat him. That's where his story really begins. Scipio wasn't just a survivor, he was a learner. After Cannae, Rome was desperate. Hannibal was rampaging through Italy, and most Roman leaders were panicking. Scipio, still in his early 20s, stayed calm. He volunteered to lead an army in Spain, where Carthage held strong bases. Older generals thought he was too young, too green. But Scipio had a vision. He didn't just want to fight. He wanted to change how Rome fought. He revolutionized army training, making soldiers faster and more flexible. Instead of rigid lines, he taught them to move like Hannibal's men, striking from unexpected angles. By 209 BCE, he was capturing key cities in Spain, like New Carthage. That wasn't just a win. It cut off Carthage's money and men. Scipio didn't have Hannibal's flair for drama, but he had something else. Results. He didn't shout about his plans. He just made them happen. What set Scipio apart was his mind. He wasn't just a general, he was a statesman. That means he knew how to talk, not just fight. In Spain, he didn't bully local tribes into joining him. He sat with their leaders, listened, and offered deals. That's diplomacy, turning strangers into friends. Tribe after tribe joined him, not because they feared him, but because they trusted him. By the time he faced Hannibal at Zama in 202 BCE, Scipio's army wasn't just Roman. It included Numidian cavalry, old enemies of Carthage who now fought for him. That's the kind of leader he was. He built alliances, not just armies. At Zama, he didn't just beat Hannibal, he outsmarted him. He used Hannibal's own tricks, like flanking moves, but added his own twist, tight discipline and perfect timing. When the dust settled, Hannibal was defeated, and Rome was safe. Here's a fascinating fact. Scipio could have destroyed Carthage completely after Zama. Most generals would have burned it to the ground to make a point. Not Scipio. He offered peace terms instead. Carthage had to give up its army and pay Rome for years, but it survived. That choice was controversial. Some Romans called him soft, saying he let the enemy off easy. Scipio didn't care. He believed in winning hearts, not just wars. That's what made him different. He wasn't chasing glory for himself. He was building a stronger Rome. His soldiers loved him for it. He was strict but fair, always clear about what he expected. No mutiny ever touched his camps. His men knew he'd never ask them to do something he wouldn't do himself. Scipio's life wasn't all smooth, though. Back in Rome, not everyone cheered him. Politicians envied his success. They whispered he was too powerful, too popular. Scipio didn't fight back with words or schemes. He just stepped away. He retired quietly, leaving the city he'd saved. That takes guts, not just to win, but to walk away. His story shows us that true strength isn't about staying in the spotlight. It's about doing what's right, even when it costs you. Let's learn some words from Scipio's world. Legion, a unit of Roman soldiers, like a small army. Diplomacy, solving problems with words, not weapons. Tactics, the plans you use in a fight. Innovation, finding new ways to do things better. Statesman, a leader who thinks about the future, not just today. And a couple of phrases. Student of disaster fits Scipio, who turned Cannae's loss into his strength. Build alliances, not just armies, captures his gift for winning trust. Scipio's background paints a picture of a man who rose from defeat to greatness. He wasn't born a hero. He became one by studying, adapting, and leading with respect. That day at Cannae could have ended him, but instead, it forged him. He didn't just save Rome, he showed the world what a leader can be. Next, we'll compare how these two giants fought their battles. Get ready for a clash of styles. Part 4. Battle Tactics. Let's dive into the heart of what made Hannibal and Scipio legends. Their battle tactics. These two didn't just fight. They turned war into an art form, each with his own style, tricks, and genius. Battles back then weren't just about who had more soldiers. It was about outsmarting your enemy, using the land, and surprising them when they least expected it. Hannibal and Scipio were masters at this, but they approached it differently. Comparing their tactics is like watching two chess grandmasters play. Every move is bold, but the strategies tell different stories. Let's break it down and see how they waged war. Hannibal was the king of surprise. He loved to keep his enemies guessing. One of his favorite tricks was the fake retreat. He'd make his army look like they were running away, luring the enemy into chasing them. Then, boom! His soldiers would turn around and strike, or another group would hit from the side. At the Battle of Cannae in 216 BCE, he took this to a whole new level. He faced a huge Roman army, way bigger than his own. Most generals would have panicked, but Hannibal saw an opportunity. He set up his troops in a crescent shape, with the middle weaker than the wings. When the Romans charged, Hannibal's center bent backward, letting the Romans think they were winning. But it was a trap. His stronger wings swung around, encircling the Romans completely. By the end, they were trapped in a pocket, unable to escape. That's called a double envelopment, and it's still studied today. Hannibal didn't stop there. He used elephants to scare enemies. Imagine facing a charging beast as big as a house. He also loved the land itself. At Cannae, he positioned his army so the sun and wind were in the Romans' faces, blinding and slowing them. Every detail mattered to him. Hannibal's tactics were all about chaos. He'd hit from unexpected angles, using flanking moves, attacks from the side or behind. He relied on his cavalry, fast horsemen who could swoop in and out. His Numidian riders were especially deadly, darting around like wasps. He didn't care about following rules. He wanted to break his enemy's spirit. Take his Alpine crossing in 218 BCE. That wasn't just a march. It was a psychological blow. Rome never expected an army to come over those mountains, let alone with elephants. Hannibal's whole approach screamed boldness. He wasn't afraid to take risks, even crazy ones, if it meant catching his enemy off guard. Scipio, on the other hand, was a different kind of brilliant. He didn't invent his tactics from scratch. He studied Hannibal's and made them better. That's what makes him so fascinating. After surviving Cannae, Scipio spent years analyzing how Hannibal won. By the time he led armies, he was ready to play Hannibal's game, but with his own spin. In Spain, around 209 BCE, Scipio used speed and surprise, just like Hannibal. He'd strike cities before they could prepare, like a thief in the night. But at the Battle of Zama in 202 BCE, Scipio showed he could match Hannibal move for move. Hannibal brought elephants. Scipio trained his men to open gaps, letting the beasts charge through without hurting anyone. Hannibal tried his encircling trick. Scipio countered with his own cavalry, hitting Hannibal's flanks. Scipio's secret weapon was discipline. His soldiers didn't just fight. They moved like a single machine. Every man knew his role, and Scipio made sure they stuck to it. What really set Scipio apart was his alliances. He didn't just rely on Roman troops. In Spain, he won over local tribes, adding their warriors to his army. At Zama, his Numidian cavalry, former allies of Carthage, gave him the edge. Scipio's tactics weren't as flashy as Hannibal's, but they were practical. He used the phalanx, a tight formation of soldiers with long spears, but made it more flexible than Rome's old style. He'd break his army into smaller units, letting them pivot or flank when needed. Like Hannibal, he loved a good feint, a fake attack to trick the enemy. But while Hannibal's feints led to chaos, Scipio's led to control. He'd confuse his enemy, then hit them exactly where he wanted. Both men were geniuses, but their tactics show their personalities. Hannibal was the rebel, bending the rules with tricks like fake retreats and elephant charges. His phrase, "Trap your enemy in a pocket," sums it up. He wanted to surround and crush. Scipio was the strategist, copying Hannibal's ideas but adding order. His motto, "Copy, then improve," says it all. He took what worked and polished it. Hannibal relied on charisma and shock. Scipio leaned on planning and teamwork. Let's learn some words from their playbook. Flanking, hitting an enemy from the side or behind. Phalanx, a wall of soldiers with shields and spears. Cavalry, fighters on horseback. Fast and deadly. Feint, a fake move to fool your enemy. Discipline, following orders perfectly, no matter what. And those phrases again. Hannibal's "trap your enemy in a pocket" captures his love for encirclement. Scipio's "copy, then improve" shows his knack for learning and winning. Hannibal's tactics made him a nightmare for Rome, but Scipio's turned him into a memory. One loved the thrill of the unexpected. The other built victories that lasted. Next, we'll compare how they led their men. Get ready for another showdown! Part 5. Leadership Style. Now we're getting to the soul of what made Hannibal and Scipio true legends. Their leadership styles. Tactics win battles, but leadership wins hearts and wars. These two men didn't just command armies. They inspired men to march through mountains, fight impossible odds, and follow them to the ends of the earth. But how they led couldn't be more different. Hannibal was a fire that burned bright, pulling everyone into his blaze. Scipio was a steady hand, guiding his men with a mix of strength and care. Let's dive into how these giants led their armies and see what set them apart. Hannibal was the kind of leader you couldn't look away from. He led from the front, always in the thick of the fight. Whether it was charging into battle or crossing the Alps in 218 BCE, he was right there with his men, facing the same dangers. That wasn't just brave, it was personal. His soldiers saw him bleed, sweat, and suffer alongside them. He slept on the ground, ate the same plain food, and never acted like he was above them. That built loyalty deeper than any gold could buy. His army wasn't just from Carthage. It was a mix of mercenaries, Gauls, Numidians, and Spaniards. Different languages, different gods, different reasons for fighting. Yet Hannibal held them together with his charisma. He had this spark, this way of making every soldier feel like they were part of something huge. He'd talk to them in their own tongues, share their jokes, and know their fears. When they crossed those freezing mountains, losing men and elephants to ice and ambushes, Hannibal kept them moving. He'd ride along the line, shouting encouragement, promising victory. His men followed because they believed in him, not just his cause. Hannibal's leadership wasn't all about charm, though. He shared their hardships, sure, but he demanded everything they had. He'd push his army through swamps or deserts, expecting them to keep up. At Cannae in 216 BCE, his plan relied on every soldier playing their part perfectly. Fake retreats, flanking moves, all timed like a dance. They pulled it off because they trusted him. But that trust came at a cost. Hannibal's obsession with Rome meant he rarely rested his men. For 15 years in Italy, they fought without enough support from Carthage. Some grumbled, but mutiny? Never. His charisma kept them in line. He wasn't afraid to be tough. Deserters faced harsh punishment, but he didn't need to use it often. His men wanted to fight for him. They saw him as one of them, a brother in arms, not a distant general. Scipio, on the other hand, led with a cooler head. He wasn't the guy charging first into battle. Instead, he was the one planning every move, watching from the hilltop, making sure nothing went wrong. That didn't mean he was distant. He just led differently. Scipio believed in delegation. He picked trusted officers, gave them clear orders, and let them do their jobs. At Zama in 202 BCE, his victory came because every part of his army, infantry, cavalry, allies, knew exactly what to do. Scipio trained them that way. He'd drill his men until they could march, turn, or charge without thinking. Discipline was his foundation. His soldiers didn't just obey out of fear. They respected him. He was strict but fair, never wasting lives on reckless gambles. In Spain, around 209 BCE, he turned a battered Roman army into a powerhouse by teaching them new tactics and giving them confidence. His men loved him because he made them better. Scipio's leadership shone in how he treated people. He didn't just command Romans, he won over enemies. In Spain, he sat with tribal leaders, listened to their concerns, and offered alliances. That's why Numidian cavalry fought for him at Zama. even though they'd once backed Carthage. Scipio had this knack for building morale, making every soldier feel valued. He'd walk through camps, talk to his men, and remember their names. But he wasn't soft. If you broke his rules, you'd face consequences. No second chances. That balance kept his army tight. Unlike Hannibal, Scipio rarely faced shortages because he planned ahead, keeping supplies flowing. His men didn't starve or wander. They knew Scipio had their backs. Both men were giants, but their styles show their hearts. Hannibal's phrase, "An army eats what its leader cooks," fits him perfectly. He shared every hardship, and his men devoured his passion. Scipio's "discipline wins wars" captures his way. Clear plans, steady hands, and trust in his team. Hannibal inspired with his presence. Scipio empowered with his system. Let's learn some words from their world. Charisma. That magnetic charm that pulls people to you. Morale. The confidence and spirit of a group. Delegation. Giving others the power to act for you. Loyalty. Sticking by someone no matter what. Mutiny. When soldiers rebel against their leader. And those phrases again. Hannibal's "An army eats what its leader cooks" shows his bond with his men. Scipio's "discipline wins wars" proves his faith in order. Hannibal led like a storm, sweeping everyone along. Scipio led like a builder, laying bricks for victory. One burned bright, the other stood firm. Next, we'll look at their lasting impact. Get ready for the final measure of their greatness. Part 6, Long-Term Impact. Now we're at the final measure of Hannibal and Scipio. Their long-term impact. Battles and leadership made them famous, but what they left behind shaped the world for centuries. Did their victories or losses change history? Did their names fade or grow brighter with time? Hannibal and Scipio didn't just fight for their cities. They fought for a place in eternity. Let's explore how their actions rippled forward and see who left the deeper mark. Hannibal's story is one of brilliance and heartbreak. He was Carthage's greatest warrior, a general who took on Rome at its peak and nearly won. His march over the Alps in 218 BCE wasn't just a bold move. It was a legend that still inspires awe. His victory at Cannae in 216 BCE, where he destroyed a massive Roman army, is studied in military schools today. For 15 years, he roamed Italy, undefeated in major battles, making Rome tremble. But here's the hard truth. Carthage lost the Second Punic War. By 202 BCE at Zama, Scipio defeated him, and Carthage's power crumbled. They had to give up their navy, their colonies, and pay Rome huge sums for decades. Hannibal's dream of crushing Rome died. Carthage never rose again, and by 146 BCE, Rome burned it to the ground. So, was Hannibal's impact a failure? Not at all. His tactics, fake retreats, flanking moves, using the terrain, became a blueprint for generals. Even today, soldiers learn how he trapped enemies in a pocket. His name means daring, the courage to defy impossible odds. Hannibal lost the war, but he won something else: immortality. Schools teach his strategies, movies tell his story, and his elephants still march in our imaginations. He showed the world that one man, with enough will, can shake an empire. Hannibal's impact wasn't just military. He changed how people saw Rome. Before him, Rome was strong but not unbeatable. His invasions proved it could bleed. That idea stuck, even if he didn't win. After Zama, Hannibal didn't quit. He tried to rebuild Carthage as a politician, pushing reforms to strengthen his city. But Rome's allies pressured him, and he fled into exile. He spent his final years helping other kings fight Rome, never giving up his oath. That stubbornness made him a symbol of resistance. Hannibal's phrase, "Lose the war, win eternity," fits him perfectly. Carthage fell, but his legacy lives on. He's the underdog who never bowed, the genius who made Rome respect him, even in defeat. His influence stretches across time, reminding us that impact isn't always about winning. It's about being remembered. Scipio, on the other hand, was Rome's savior, and his impact was immediate. At Zama in 202 BCE, he didn't just beat Hannibal, he ended the war that threatened Rome's existence. That victory secured Rome's place as the Mediterranean's superpower. Scipio's campaigns in Spain, from 209 BCE, had already weakened Carthage by taking their richest colonies. At Zama, he sealed the deal. Rome gained control of North Africa's trade routes and vast wealth. Scipio's peace terms were tough but smart. He didn't destroy Carthage, letting it survive as a weaker state. That choice kept the region stable, giving Rome room to grow. Without Scipio, Rome might not have become the empire we know, with its roads, laws, and ideas that shaped the West. His discipline, his way of blending Roman and foreign tactics, set a new standard for Roman armies. Generals after him copied his playbook. Train hard, plan well, win allies. Scipio wasn't just a hero, he was a foundation. But Scipio's story has a twist. After Zama, he returned to Rome a star. They called him Africanus, conqueror of Africa. He could have ruled the city, but he didn't. Rome's politics turned sour. Senators envied his fame and whispered he was too powerful. Some even accused him of taking bribes. Scipio didn't fight back with speeches or schemes. He chose exile, not forced, but voluntary. He left Rome quietly, retiring to his estate far from the city he saved. That choice wasn't weakness, it was strength. He put Rome's unity above his own glory. By stepping away, he showed that true leaders don't cling to power. His phrase, "Victory has no friends," captures that loneliness. Scipio died young, around 183 BCE, almost the same time as Hannibal. Rome mourned him, but his enemies outlived him, clouding his name for a while. So, who had the bigger impact? Hannibal's legacy is eternal, but tied to loss. His tactics and courage inspire, but Carthage vanished. Scipio's legacy is quieter, but massive. He built Rome's empire, yet his name faded behind its shadow. Let's learn some words from their world. Legacy, what you leave for others. Empire, a nation ruling many lands. Envy, jealousy of someone's success. Exile, leaving your home, sometimes by choice. Influence, the power to shape others' actions. And those phrases, Hannibal's "lose the war, win eternity," shows his lasting fame. Scipio's "victory has no friends" reveals the cost of his greatness. Hannibal's impact burns bright in stories and strategies, a flame that never fades. Scipio's is the bedrock of an empire, strong but less celebrated. One lost everything but one memory. The other won everything but lost the spotlight. Next, we'll focus on learning English with their epic tale. Get ready to practice! Part 7. English Learning Focus. We've explored the epic clash of Hannibal and Scipio, and now it's time to boost your English with their story. This part is all about learning, using their battles and words to make your language skills stronger. Whether you're working on grammar, vocabulary, or speaking, these two generals are your guides. Let's dive into key patterns, practice sentences, and a podcast-style narration to help you grow confident. Let's start with grammar, focusing on past tense irregular verbs. History lives in the past, and irregular verbs bring it to life. Hannibal didn't just fight, he sank enemy ships. Scipio didn't just plan, he stole Hannibal's tricks. Words like sank, stole, fought, and won don't follow the usual ed rule, making them perfect for epic tales. Picture Hannibal. He swore an oath against Rome as a boy. Scipio saw disaster at Cannae, but rose to victory. Swore, saw, rose. These verbs twist in the past tense, and they're great for storytelling. To practice, try this fill-in-the-blank. Maybe, if Hannibal tricked the Romans, then Scipio learned fast. Or, if Hannibal led with courage, then Scipio won with brains. Pause and say your version out loud, using verbs like pushed, took, or built. Feel how these words carry the weight of history. Now, let's tackle superlatives to describe our general's feats. Superlatives show the extreme, like the boldest move or the cleverest plan. Hannibal's Alpine crossing was one of the riskiest marches ever. Scipio's Zama victory was the smartest comeback. Words like boldest, riskiest, smartest add drama. Try this. Fill it with superlatives, maybe fiercest attack and calmest strategy. Say it aloud to feel the power. These words help you compare and emphasize, just like we're comparing our heroes. For vocabulary, we've got 30 words and 12 phrases from the story. Let's revisit a few. Ambush, a surprise attack, like Hannibal's cannae trap. Discipline, strict control, Scipio's key to Zama. Legacy, what you leave behind, like Hannibal's tactics or Scipio's empire. Phrases like fight smarter, not harder, capture Scipio's wisdom, while master of surprise fits Hannibal's flair. To lock these in, we'll do a podcast-style narration. Listen closely and repeat after me. Hannibal said, "I will either find a way or make one." Pause. Repeat. Scipio said, "A true leader turns enemies into allies." Pause. Repeat. These quotes aren't just cool. They teach you to speak with rhythm. Try narrating slowly. Hannibal sank Rome's hopes. Pause between words, then repeat. It builds confidence. One last practice. Let's combine everything. Say this sentence, filling the blanks with irregular verbs and superlatives. Maybe Hannibal led the wildest attack, but Scipio won the greatest victory. Try it 3 times, changing words each time. This mixes grammar, vocab, and creativity, making English stick. This learning focus ties Hannibal and Scipio to your goals. Their story isn't just history. It's a way to grow. Keep practicing these patterns, and you'll speak bolder and smarter, just like our generals fought. Would you like me to revise any part of this script, write another video section, or assist with something else for your project? Brief conclusion. We've journeyed through the saga of Hannibal and Scipio, and now it's time to wrap it up with a clear summary and a call to action. Their rivalry wasn't just about battles. It was about 2 men who shaped history with their courage and cunning. Let's look back at what we've learned, pick a side, and talk about what their story means for you. Get ready to join the conversation and keep exploring epic history. Hannibal was the flash of lightning in this tale. He crossed the Alps with elephants, outsmarted Rome at Cannae, and stayed undefeated in Italy for 15 years. His daring made him a legend. Nobody forgot the man who used vinegar to break rocks or swore an oath against Rome at 9. But his story has a shadow. Carthage lost the war, and Hannibal spent his final years in exile, never giving up, but never winning again. He was bold, charismatic, and brilliant, but flawed. His obsession with Rome cost him everything except his name, which still shines in military books and stories. Hannibal taught us that risks can change the game, but passion alone isn't enough to hold an empire. Scipio, though, was the steady flame. He survived Cannae, conquered Spain, and beat Hannibal at Zama without ever losing a battle. He wasn't loud. He studied, planned, and turned enemies into allies. His discipline and diplomacy saved Rome, setting it on the path to empire. Yet his ending wasn't all cheers. Envy from politicians pushed him to retire quietly, far from the city he protected. Scipio showed us that brains and teamwork can outlast chaos, but even heroes face loneliness. His victories built Rome's future, but his name faded behind its glory. So, who's your genius? Hannibal, the rebel who burned bright? Or Scipio, the strategist who won it all? This choice isn't just about history. It's about what you value. Would you follow Hannibal into a wild, uncertain fight, trusting his charisma to pull you through? Or would you stand with Scipio, betting on his calm plans and steady hand? Think about this. Is it better to win the war like Scipio, securing a legacy of strength, or to be remembered forever like Hannibal, a symbol of defiance? There's no right answer, but your pick says something about you. Maybe you admire Hannibal's heart, refusing to bow even when the odds were grim. Or maybe Scipio's mind speaks to you, proving that learning from failure can lead to triumph. Whichever you choose, their story pushes us to ask, what would we do in their place? Now it's your turn to join the fight. Drop a comment below. Write elephant if you're Team Hannibal, or eagle if you're Team Scipio. Tell us why. Would you march with Hannibal's elephants or trust Scipio's tactics? Share your thoughts, because this debate never gets old. And don't stop here. Subscribe to learn English with stories. 365 for more epic history battles. We've got more generals, more rivalries, and more lessons waiting. Want to practice your English with another clash of titans? Stick around, because the next story is just as wild. Let's keep asking the big questions. Who shapes history, and how do we shape our own?